Growing up, I never felt like I truly knew my father. I knew the basics. He worked hard, he provided for the family, and he was always present in the ways that mattered on paper. But beyond that, there was a wall that I couldn't seem to get past. It wasn't like we were estranged, not exactly, but our relationship felt strained in a way I didn't understand as a child. My father was a man of few words, and while I admired him in some ways, I couldn't help but feel like there was something missing between us, something intangible, something I couldn't put my finger on. He wasn't an angry man, but there was an emotional distance that seemed to follow him wherever he went. At family gatherings, while everyone else laughed and joked together, he would sit quietly, his gaze often fixed on a distant point, as though there was something heavy on his mind. I used to think it was just his way of being, something inherent to him, but the older I got, the more I realized it was affecting me. I didn't fully recognize the weight of this growing up. I was a child, after all, and kids don't often analyze relationships the way adults do. But as I entered my teenage years, things began to change. I started to want more from my relationship with my father. I wanted to talk with him, to bond with him, to feel like I could count on him for more than just material needs. I wanted to hear him say the words I never heard him say, "I'm proud of you," or even, "I love you." But those words never came. I remember the first time I tried to have a conversation with him about it. I was 15, and I had just gotten my first part-time job. I was nervous, excited, and full of questions about what it meant to become an adult. I thought this would be the moment that my father would sit me down, give me some advice, and maybe even express some kind of pride in me. But instead, I was met with silence. I told him about the job, the responsibilities I was taking on, and the excitement I felt. He didn't ask any questions. He didn't offer any praise. Instead, he said, "That's good. Keep working hard." Then, he went back to reading his newspaper. At that moment, something inside me shifted. I felt a rush of disappointment, not because he didn't approve of what I was doing, but because I couldn't understand why he couldn't express it. I wanted him to share my excitement, to understand my nervousness, to tell me it was okay to be uncertain about this new chapter of life. Instead, it felt like I was talking to a stranger, someone who cared, but didn't know how to show it. As I moved into my late teens and early 20s, the distance between us grew. I would go to him for advice about relationships, college decisions, or career paths, and the answers were always the same: short, practical, and void of the emotional connection I needed. "Just do your best," he would say. "Don't make things more complicated than they need to be." His words, while meant to guide me, only left me feeling more alone in my struggles. When I turned 22, I began to reflect more seriously on my relationship with my father. I was in my last year of college, facing the unknowns of the real world, and feeling the weight of decisions bearing down on me. For the first time, I questioned whether the emotional distance between my father and me had affected my relationships with others. I was having trouble opening up to people, struggling to trust that anyone would care the way I needed them to. I realized that the lack of connection with my father had left me feeling emotionally stunted in some ways. It wasn't just his inability to express love. It was his failure to acknowledge that I was becoming an adult, that I needed more than just the basics from him. I wanted him to see me as someone capable of handling things, but also someone who needed guidance, support, and emotional reassurance. I didn't need him to be perfect, but I needed him to be present. One afternoon, during a visit home from college, I decided I needed to confront the issue. I had spent years internalizing my feelings of abandonment, thinking it was something wrong with me. But that day, I realized that if I didn't take action, nothing would change. I didn't want to carry this resentment with me any longer. I wanted to heal, and I wanted to understand my father, even if it meant facing uncomfortable truths. "Dad, can we talk?" I asked that afternoon as we sat together in the living room. He looked up from the TV, his usual indifference on his face, but he nodded. "What about? I don't know how to say this, but I feel like we don't really talk. Like I don't really know you, and you don't really know me. I don't know what it is, but I feel like you're always so distant. And I don't know why." He sat back, eyes narrowing slightly, as though he was preparing for a confrontation. He didn't say anything at first, and the silence stretched for a long time, so long that I almost thought he wasn't going to respond at all. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and hesitant. "You think I'm distant, don't you?" I nodded, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Yeah, I just don't get it. I want to connect with you. I want to talk to you, but it's like you're always so far away." There was another long pause, and I could tell he was thinking, his mind working through what I had said. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I'm not good at this, you know," he said quietly. "I never was. I've always been the provider, the one who fixes things, who keeps the family stable. But I've never known how to show my emotions. My father didn't show me how to do that. And I guess I just thought that if I gave you what you needed in terms of a roof over your head, food on the table, and a good education, that would be enough." The admission was like a weight lifting off my chest. For the first time, I felt like he was being vulnerable with me. He had always known how to take care of us physically, but emotionally, he had been carrying his own burdens I had never fully understood. "I'm sorry, I really am," he added, his voice breaking for the first time. "I wanted to be the dad you needed, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to show you that I cared, other than providing for you." I sat there, stunned by his words. I hadn't expected an apology, let alone an explanation. For years, I had blamed him for not being the father I had imagined, but now I could see that he had been doing the best he could with the tools he had. "I know, Dad," I said softly. "I get it now. I don't need you to be perfect. I just needed you to be here. I needed you to show up, even when it wasn't easy. And I think, for the first time, I can see that you've been showing up all along, just in your own way." We both sat there for a while, not saying anything, just letting the moment settle between us. And for the first time, I felt like we had truly connected, not in the way I had always imagined, but in a real, honest way. As the months passed, our conversations became more frequent, more intentional. We began to share things that we hadn't shared before, both big and small. He started asking about my plans for the future, and I found myself opening up to him in ways I never had before. It was as though I had unlocked a door that had been closed for so many years. One afternoon, a few weeks later, I found myself sitting across from my father at the kitchen table, sipping coffee. We had just had a long conversation about my future, my career, my goals, and my uncertainties about life. I had always kept these thoughts to myself, afraid to burden anyone, especially him. But this time, I opened up. "I don't know what I'm doing, Dad," I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I'm so scared of making the wrong decision. Everyone expects me to know what I want, but I'm still figuring it out." He set his coffee cup down and looked at me with an intensity I had never seen before. "No one has it all figured out," he said, his voice low. "Not even me. I still don't know if I made all the right choices in my life, but I did what I thought was best. And I've learned to live with those decisions." I blinked, surprised at how open he was being. "But what if I mess up?" He shrugged, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You will, and when you do, you'll learn from it. That's the only way to grow." For the first time in my life, I felt like my father wasn't just giving me advice from a place of authority, but from a place of shared experience. He wasn't telling me how to live my life. He was acknowledging the uncertainty that comes with being human, with being a daughter, and with navigating adulthood. He was showing me, in his own way, that it was okay to not have all the answers, that failure was a part of the process. Later that evening, as I sat in my room reflecting on our conversation, I realized how much had changed. For so many years, I had wanted my father to be someone he wasn't, to be more expressive, to be more open, to be more like the fathers I saw on TV or read about in books. But now, I understood that he was doing the best he could, and that was enough. I didn't need him to be perfect. I needed him to be real. And in that moment, I realized he had been.